Hello, welcome to another IT Wildcard video. This video is part of a subset within the IT Wildcard series which I've been doing, and this subset specifically covers a reflection on CS50 courses. So in probably the tail end of, or the, I don't know what you would call it, the second half if you like, of 2023, I started to do some of the courses under the CS50 banner, and I'm doing this through edX, but anybody that knows the courses will know they're actually offered, the provider is HarvardX. So in 2023 I've now completed 4 of these, and the one I want to talk about today is actually CS50's Introduction to Computer Science, which I think was the first one under the CS50 banner. So yeah, I'm going to just reflect on that and explain a few things that or explain about the course, and if you're thinking about doing what to expecting. Now, one disclaimer I will say is, of course, when this video goes out, it's now 2024. So they may well have tweaked the course slightly. We'll have a look, actually. I can drill into that because it's actually showing the 2024 version of this. Because what I do on edX is I don't bother upgrading to get a certificate from edX, because HarvardX actually offers a certificate when you complete the course anyway. Which I'll explain, where you need to go to do that. So yeah, so as a consequence, the course on edX is just left open for me, so it just rolls over each year, and will show up, and we'll see what I mean in a moment. So yeah, so when you enroll for the course, which obviously I've already done because I've completed it, you get presented with this page in edX. So if you go into edX, obviously you have to have an edX account, which is free, but how they make their money is they charge for certificates. Now, this course and series of CS50 courses is pretty unique now. It used to be a bit more like this back in the day when I first started using edX, but these are a few courses on there that still follow this thing of basically you being able to do the course, do all the tests, get assessed. But if you want a certificate from edX, you have to pay extra, or you have to pay something. And that's how they were when I first started doing them, in actual fact, when I first started doing the Microsoft ones. They've changed it a lot now, so that if you do courses on there generally, say very generally, you have to pay something to generally do assignments. With this, like I said, it's an exception, and you can do the whole course and complete it and get your certificate from HarvardX. But unless you pay this extra $219, you won't get the certificate from edX. Well, I'm fine from having the one from Harvard, so that's good enough for me for this course. In the past, on some of the Microsoft ones, I did choose to get an upgrade to a certificate, but this was back in the early days of the platform, and they were much cheaper than this, basically. So yeah, when you first go in and you enroll, you're presented with this page, and if you scroll down, you'll see there's the weeks, if you like. Although I don't think these quite equate to the weeks. It's more like chronologically. Down here is a better idea of the weeks. So week 0 to 9 are the only ones that have some form of assessment, which we'll get into in a moment. This one doesn't. Week 10, in essence, is a lead into your final project. So yeah. And then there's a little thing on cybersecurity as well. Now you'll notice if I expand out 2024, looks like they've shifted things around a little bit, and they've stuck in something on artificial intelligence. I'm not too fussed that the fact that maybe I should have held on till the following year and done it then, but I figured I wanted to get it out of the way. And the reason why I'm not too fussed is because the next course I'm doing is actually their one on artificial intelligence in Python. So, yeah. So maybe they've added in this to bring it in as a nice lead on, because my understanding is a lot of this has been tweaked over the years in light of other courses that they're now doing. So it provides a much cleaner lead in if you want to do something else. Now, this is the hardest course with them I've done so far. It is hard, just so you know. I'm fortunate for a number of various reasons. One is way back in the day, I was taught how to program at school. Secondly, after that I was able to do a lot of programming, and here I'm talking about in the 80s, by the way, 1980s. I then did a job, I was doing programming internally in a firm, although my job title didn't have programmer in it. I was doing programming for, I think, over the course of about 4 years. And then after that, I dabbled a bit more, and then finally took a programming job for about 18 months, programming accounting systems. And at that point I decided, I quite enjoyed it when I was doing it as an adjunct to something, but for me as a full-time career doing nothing else wasn't really for me. So I went back really to using it as complementing something else. So, as part of some training I might be doing, I might teach people programming, or if I was solving a problem for a client, I might write a little quick piece of code to do something, or do a website or something like that, alongside, my regular troubleshooting career. So yeah, definitely I've spent more time doing programming as an adjunct to something else, rather than just, full-time programming. Although, as I've said, that, over the years, I've found myself in that position either within a firm doing just that for a period of time, or working as a contractor. So it was interesting to revisit a lot of stuff. The component I found hardest was all the C stuff, because I've not done much C. The last time I programmed in C was probably 94, 95, and maybe a little bit again in the tail end of the 90s. So that was pretty challenging, and that actually week-wise takes up the vast majority of the course, because it runs from week 1 through to week 5. However, when you're not doing C, there's quite a bit squeezed into each week. So you've got a week of Python, a week of SQL, a week of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, a week of Flask, which is more, I suppose, like a more dynamic web development, and then this emoji week, which, like I said, had a project at the end of it. So let's just go through as I've done in previous videos and just break down. So the other thing is, you'll find that you flick between the edX course and a dedicated CS50 Introduction to Computer Science website that Harvard have. And as you navigate through these different areas, you do find yourself jumping in and out of that. But most of the time, once I'm in this bit, I just stay in here, because you can do everything from here. And you can see everything's down here. You've got your the certificate page, the grade book. What happens is, as you complete your assignments, stuff gets ticked off in your grade book. And once you get to the end, there's a feature in the grade book to then go and get your certificate through HarvardX. So, which looks like this. Yeah, so week 0, it's basically Scratch. It wasn't dissimilar to some of the Scratch stuff I did in the introductory courses that I've done videos on. So if you're curious about anything, CS50P, which is the Python one, CS50T, which is the introduction to technology, and the CS50B, which is the computer science for business professionals, I found those really useful to do as a prerequisite to this, personally. The B and the T, the technology and the business one, I think with that it's either or. They have some commonality between themselves of components, and if you watch my videos you'll see what they are. So the Scratch one's pretty straightforward. You have a problem set to do, and you're doing Scratch programming based on a certain specification. You get to choose what you do, but it has to have a certain amount of components in it, criteria which are tested. So that looks fairly slim. Now, one thing to be mindful of, the lectures, the video lectures here. On this one, there's just one main one. They are quite long compared to other ones. I think this particular one, it's 2 hours. So most of the ones I've done up to now in the other courses, the CS50 courses, were about an hour and a half. So these are 2 hours. Now, as you get deeper into the course, so this is week 1, which is the start of the C stuff, you'll find there's a lot more videos. In addition to the lecture, you'll find that there's a whole set of additional videos to watch which deal with, I think it's done because when people are actually doing this course in real life, physically at Harvard, there's a lot of feedback through the TAs. And so these videos are there to address those questions. So there's this one, which is normally fairly long. It's about, an hour long, just about that. And then these, week 1, practice problems. Let me go back. Here we go. These ones, which are shorts, which deal with specific things that come up in the very first video you watch. So it sort of breaks them down more. And these can be anything from, 5 minutes to 20 minutes. And there's a whole load of those, and they're different, obviously, on each week. In terms of the practical stuff, there's practical practice problems which you don't have to do. I found a lot of these really useful to do. I normally do them while I'm watching the videos. So where I get to a particular section where they might be talking about it, I'll start doing it in parallel. The labs, which are compulsory, and they have almost like a walkthrough element to them. So you'll find if you watch everything in this, like the walkthrough and the hints, it pretty much, gives you instructions on how to complete the lab. Again, it's up to you whether you choose to read everything and expose all the tips. And then finally, you get the problem set. So with these, I found that there were, a couple of problems in each problem set. And you'll see that on this one, which I hadn't come across before, on when I did the Python one, there were a couple of choices. So So either one or the other. You can do them. I mean, you can do them both if you want. If you do choose to do both, you just get whatever is the highest mark. Now, the nice thing about this, if you haven't done this course, and I think I've mentioned it before, is you're using, to do all the programming side of things and all the problem sets, you're using Visual Studio Code online. And it has a submission feature in it, which, you get into there by logging in through this. It has a submission feature in there, which also allows you to test your submission before you submit it. So yeah, you definitely want to take advantage of that. And also it has a number of, there's several tools on there, but one useful one is one that helps with the layout of your code. So it offers like syntactical advice about the syntax layout, basically. Whether you've got too many spaces or how you're laying your code out. So like a linter, I suppose. And there's all sorts of additional, suggestions about how you can, dive deeper if you find you're getting yourself stuck. But be warned, it is very challenging, and there's a lot of work involved beyond just watching the lectures. And then you go through, so it's very similar for these C weeks, practice problems, lab, problem set. And then access to the shorts as well. And then, as I mentioned, there's also this sort of additional video, which, explores aspects of the main tutorial video in certain detail based on what sort of questions I think they have had coming up. So that's pretty useful. So then we get on to algorithms, memory, data structures. So up to here, it's all, apart from week 0, which is Scratch, this is all done in C. Then we get on to Python. Now, if you've done CS50P, Introduction to Python, before you did this shouldn't be any problem. In actual fact, the problem sets, which are the optional one, only one of them is new. All the others are actually borrowed from CS50P. Now, in terms of the rest of it, in terms of the lab and the problem set, they are, new. So there's this World Cup one. The other thing with this, and I've said this numerous times before, and I suppose it's obvious, just make sure you really read the instructions. I'm terrible at doing that, and consequently, sometimes I end up stuff getting broken and not working because I didn't really read the instructions properly. I tend to sort of dive in a bit too soon. Then we got the problem set. There's quite a lot in this. There's 4 bits. I mean, these are optionals. One thing I will say is some of these are like refactoring, if that's the right word, of the stuff you've done in C. So, So some of these you sort of already know how to do it from a, almost like as if you've done you've done it. Well, yeah, you've done it before in another language. So all you've got to do is think about, how can I implement that playing on the strengths in Python. So this, for me, was not too challenging. This one was challenging, the DNA one, but generally it was good because I'd already done the CS50P stuff, and I'd gone through and done all the stuff in the C exercises as well. So yeah, it was easier to then redo stuff in Python. I had to do hello in Python. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. With these, I tended to go for the more comfortable one, although there were a couple of instances in here where I did go for the less comfortable one. And we get SQL. This was fun. This is now about the 4th time I've done SQL. So I did it once in the 90s as part of a big, was it 6-month course? It was 24 weeks, I think. Something close to that, yeah. Coming close to around 24 weeks of database design, including SQL programming with the Open University as part of my postgrad. So, yeah, I'd already done a lot of SQL. Also, when I did the accounting programming job, we were using an MS SQL backend at some point. Also, then I think in the 2000s, I did a web design qualification, which had SQL in at least 2 of the units as a backend for website design using MySQL. And I did Transact SQL when I did a Microsoft qualification in data science, or a series of qualifications in data science. So it's fun to revisit again in the 2020s. And what I really like with this is problem set 7 had a really cool gamification of SQL. We had to solve a mystery by interrogating SQL tables. That was really cool. I really enjoyed that. And in fact, of all the units I did, I thoroughly enjoyed the SQL one. I actually don't remember watching much of the lecture. I did watch it, but I had it on in the background whilst I went through the various practice problems and labs and stuff like that. So yeah, that was really enjoyable. But again, I had the benefit of, already doing it about 3 times, plus all the times when I'd have people who knew I knew SQL ask me questions about how can, this query isn't working, what have I done wrong, sort of thing. So then we get on to this, which is not dissimilar to stuff I did when I did the introductory courses, the technology and the business one, business focus one, with JavaScript bolted on. And so basically, as part of this, you have to design a home page, but also you'll see within the problem sets the lab, sorry. Yeah. There's a little bit of designing on like a multi-choice page. It's pretty cool. There's a number of criteria you had to meet. This was interesting, so I'd never done Flask before. So yeah, this was, again, in some ways, although I hadn't done Flask, it wasn't dissimilar to some of the stuff I did on my web applications design development course back in the 2000s. But there I was using different dynamic technologies and server-side technologies. So, I was using stuff like, JScript, like server-side scripting, and as part of active server pages, I did that. And then what else did I do? I think PHP with MySQL as well. And there was something else that I did, some sort of Macromedia product, which I can't quite remember the name of, which I remember we also did at the time. Yeah, anyway, So, you know, the basic, what's the word I'm looking for here? Frameworks, paradigms was not dissimilar. But there was quite an involved problem set to do with designing like a finance interface. It's funny, after you do this, I find stuff like blurs together in terms of the different projects, because there were just so many so many parts. You know, some bits had like 4 or 5 or 6 problems, well, not problem sets, but just things to do and get assessed on under different categories. Yeah. But it's nice, it's pretty explicit about what you have to do. And it was quite fun to see, again, another technology where, you're doing, you're learning about sort of aspects of layout, where, you have dynamic layout, where you're not just using JavaScript necessarily. And in this instance, obviously, we were specifically using it so that we could do Python code. So yeah, that's the rationale behind using flasks. The other thing, again, there's lots of different things on here. Yeah, and also there was a bit about using SQL inside of Python, which was nice because we'd just done the SQL bit before then. So it was good to see how Python could be used server side as well, which is pretty cool. And all the notes on all the units are all nicely laid out like this. So, and as with the other units, there were lots of additional videos you could watch if you were unsure about things. And then week 10 was this thing just called Emoji, which was a lecture about emojis, and then it was a sort of lead into the final project, where you get to choose what you wanted to do, and there's certain criteria for submission in terms of what's included, and again you just sort of submit that. There's an interface to submit your work, both in terms of the forms. So it does use, I think, Google Docs to submit a form, and then also it uses the features inside of Visual Studio Code, they're a sort of online implementation. And there was also a little bit on cybersecurity, but it wasn't assessed, which is interesting because when I did my web design, web applications design qualification in 2000s with the Open University, that also they covered cybersecurity. It was more back then, more about viruses, and we did that in the first week actually, when we were learning about HTML and like static web design. So yeah, I really enjoyed doing this. It was very, very challenging. Took a lot of time. As I've said before, fortunately, I'm in a position where I can concentrate on this over a lot of other things. So I was able to just put the hammer down, put my foot to the floor on multiple days during the daytime. If you were doing this alongside work, as I have done myself in the past, when I was doing my Open University courses and other courses as well, actually, it's pretty hard. I mean, it's doable, obviously, but yeah, you have to really manage your time and decide how much you're going to set aside each evening to do. I tend to like doing these in a block simply because I find it a lot easier to just program in a single sitting if I'm working on a problem. I mean, sometimes you have to break it up, obviously, but it's nice to know, you know, you say you've got 3 hours to work on something as opposed to like having half an hour and then you've got to pick it up again tomorrow. I found it a lot easier to be able to work continually. And as I've said, once you're done, if you go into the HarvardX side of the management of it, then you can access your gradebook and go in and print off your certificate, or download your certificate as a PDF and then print it off. Yeah. So yeah, if you're thinking about doing it, I would say do it. So the next one I'm planning on doing is the one on artificial intelligence. And my plan with this is to really slow roll this. One of the things where I, was I lit a fire under myself with this one, with the CS50, was that I wanted to finish it by 2023. I could have carried it on to 2024, but I decided I wanted to do that and then start afresh. Now I've, in essence, got, if I wanted to, the whole of 2024 to work on the AI course, which I won't end up doing. There is actually also, I noticed, a standalone SQL course they do, which I wouldn't mind doing again. More sort of, I said, more SQL. And there's a couple of other things that look pretty interesting. So I'm just going to hammer through these. And like I say, the next one up is the artificial intelligence one. Yeah, there is also one on web development, which I wouldn't mind taking a look at. But after I've done this AI one, it looks like, in terms of how many hours they recommend you to allow for it, looks like it's even more work than CS50, but we'll see, because this was a lot of work. So thanks once again for watching. Bye for now, and I will catch you in a future video.